Hi, I'm Scott Harvey, and we're doing a whole series of lab procedures via video so that people can look at them for the Sacramento home winemakers or anybody else that wants to do it. And today we're going to do volatile acidity. And volatile acidity is the vinegar level in the wine. All wine has a certain amount of vinegar level in it. Winemakers tend not to use the word vinegar because they don't like it, so we use the word volatile acidity, which is the most volatile of all the acids that are in wine. And making wine is just a natural process that Mother Nature takes grape juice to vinegar, and by knowing the life cycles of the yeast and the bacteria and so forth, we can control the process that Mother Nature takes it down to the point where we want to drink it with lots of alcohol in it, and not where the fruit fly wants to drink it with lots of vinegar in it. So we kind of guide Mother Nature down the path where we want it. So we're always testing for the vinegar level or the volatile acidity or VA level. And what we use is a cash still. And that's what this unit is here. It was invented by a guy named Cash. He worked for Gallo, and when he invented this apparatus, we put 10 milliliters of sample of wine in here, and then in a water bath we boil the sample and distill off the vinegar into a distillate area here. And by knowing the amount of the sample of wine and the molarity of the base that we're going to use, which is sodium hydroxide 0.1 normal, we can calculate the amount of vinegar that's in the sample. So we're going to start with, we want to first off make sure that it's well rinsed, and I'm sure that Mollie here, who's running the camera, who runs these tests regularly, has rinsed this already, but I'll do it again. You just fill it up. That goes into the area where the wine goes, and you open the petcock. And this is hooked up to a vacuum, water vacuum, that is pulling that sample out and wrenching it out. So now I'm going to close it up, and I'm going to add 10 mils of my sample. This is a 2018 Bowman Zinfandel. Bowman is one of the shareholders in this company. I've been making wine off this vineyard for probably 30 years now. It was planted back in the 70s. So we have a 10 ml sample. Notice that I ran the wine through the pipette first. It's always good to have good lab technique. Make sure your sample is what you're running and not contaminated by a previous sample. So there's 10 mils going in. Then we're going to add just a touch of 0.3% hydrogen peroxide. That neutralizes any of the acidity from the free SO2 in the wine, so it doesn't mess up your reading. And we're going to add one of these funnel here is full of water. And we close it up, and we'll fill the funnel up again, and we'll use that to rinse, because we're normally running a whole bunch of these at once. So now we're going to turn on the heating element, and the heating element's going to heat this up and boil this sample, and you'll see it condense and go into this Erlenmeyer flask. We're going to want about a 100 ml sample. It could be anywhere between 75 and 150, because it's the rest of it will just be liquid. The amount of VA we're going to take out of this 10 milliliter sample doesn't matter how big of a sample of solution that it's in. And then after we get that distillate off, then we're going to titrate, and we'll show you how that's done after this finishes up. In the meantime, it's very important to also, when you're doing lab analysis, to do sensory analysis. And so it's very important to smell the wine, because you can smell a VA depending on the levels. at about I like to bottle wine at 0.55 VA, and that's grams per 100 milliliters, right? 0.55. Yeah, and 0.055 would be grams per liter. Most of the time, lab analysis is in grams per 100 milliliters. But at 0.55, you can't smell the VA, but there's enough there where it volatilizes the other components in the wine and really brings out the pretty floral characters of the wine. So now that I'm smelling the wine, I'm picking up that there's no noticeable VA in the wine, which is a good thing. And so I want to make sure that that's not there. I'll taste it. Suck a little over my tongue, and then I can then tell a little bit more about whether the VA is too high or not high enough in the wine. But so far the sample's tasting very, very good. So we're letting our cash still run here, and we're just about up to about 50 mils, so we got a little bit of time to go yet till we get a 100 ml sample. Okay, now our sample is up to 100 ml. Remember I said it can be anywhere between 75 and 150, doesn't matter. So I turn off my cash still, and let me grab a beaker over here. Here we go. And I pull out my Erlenmeyer and just put a catcher in there to catch it. And then what I'm doing now is I'm setting up the cash still for the next run. So I've just opened the petcock that pulls all of the sample out, and then I'm filling the bowl that the sample went into with distilled water and letting that pull out. And then in the meantime, I'm turning this petcock to the point where it allows water into the boiling bath, and I'm filling that back up to a mark about right here. So it uses a little bit of that boiling water every time we use it, and you want to keep that filled up about half full. Okay. Now she's set up and ready to roll for the next sample. So in the meantime, I'm going to run the titration. So I just make sure there's no drops on the bottom there. I'm using 0.1 normal sodium hydroxide. You use phenolphthalein as a color indicator, so 3 or 4 drops of that. And then you start swirling. Everybody has their own way to titrate. I swirl with my right hand since I'm right-handed, and I control the petcock with my left hand. So as you see the drops starting, I'm slowly getting to the point where they'll start dropping. You'll see a little bit of red show up. So here we go. Okay, there's the first drop, second drop. Now when this stays red and stays solidly red, we know we're at our endpoint. See, that it's still eating up the sodium hydroxide, and then when it's completely done and it stays red for a little while, see, it's still dissolving a little bit. Now it's stayed red there, and then it'll stay red in here. If it goes back to clear right away, then you know you haven't added enough. So reading off of the graduations here, we used 1 milliliter or 1.1 milliliter of 0.1 normal sodium hydroxide, and you multiply that times 0.6, and you get your VA level, which is 0.66. So or right? No, 0.6. 0.6. Yeah, 0.6. 0.6 is times 1. It's 0.6 times 1.1. That's where you get the 0.66. I was saying 0.6 times 0.6 is not 0.66. But anyway, so that's, and I'm so used to doing this that I know if I have 1.1 mils, I got 0.66 VA. So that's a little higher than I want, but it's well within acceptability. I'm not going to do anything to this wine to try to lower it unless I blend it in something with much lower VA. That's one way to get the VA down to 0.55. Another way is to push the wine through a machine that kind of splits the wine in half, and it takes the part with the VA in it and pulls the VA out of that and then puts the wine back together. And that's a machine that was invented by Clark Smith and has really changed our industry. But anyway, so that's VA. We have this on a sheet, so if you want to send us an email, you can send me an email to Scott@ScottHarveyWines, what's with an S.com. Request it, and I'll send you a copy of the written instructions on how to run a cash still. So thanks for watching. See ya.